Whether you think you should make it a Hall of Fame or not, whether you like him as a person or not, whether you're judging him for being human or not, it's none of our business because Pete Rose did things that in 2024 few baseball players can do or will ever do again. Now, when the Reds entered the 1970s, they earned a nickname the Big Red Machine. He was a big cog. He was sort of the the big six-cylinder motor. They were one of the greatest, if not the greatest team in MLB history, including future Hall of Famers Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, and Perez. And of course, Rose was viewed as one of the club's leaders because he played numerous positions. Now, it was a significant factor in the Reds' success in the World Series in 75 and 76 when he successfully moved from the outfield to third base. Early in his career, the Reds and then manager Don Hefner tried to force Rose to third, but Rose chafed at the move and was soon abandoned. However, in the spring of 1975, manager Sparky Anderson, knowing how Rose would react to being forced to move, instead asked him if he would do so for the good of the team. Rose then agreed. You got to stroke the line correctly. This move strengthened third base and helped to solidify the Reds for those two title seasons because it made room for power-hitting outfielder George Foster. In 75, he was World Series MVP and leading the Reds to their first title since 1940, a struggle of a 7-game triumph over the Red Sox. Rose led the team with 10 hits in those 7 contests and a .370 batting average in the 7 games. He was awarded a Hickok belt as the top pro athlete of the year, as well as SI's Sportsman of the Year prize. Now, the following season, he was a major force in helping the Reds repeat. The 76 Reds swept the Phillies in a best-of-3 and LCS, followed by a 4-game sweep of the Billy Martin-led World Series, who didn't have Reggie Jackson yet. The 76 club remains the only team since the expansion of the playoffs in 69 to go undefeated in the postseason, and the Reds franchise has not lost a World Series game since Game 6 in 75. They had 4-game sweeps in 76 and 1990. Now, 1978, the next season, ironically, when the Reds did make the playoffs, it was a key year for repeat because he was chasing down not only 3,000 hits, but the consecutive hit record. On April 29, 78, in a nationally broadcast game in a 14-7 rout against the Mets, he hit a career-high 3 home runs off of 3 different pitchers and went 5 for 6, which was perhaps the greatest performance of his career. Now, less than a week later, on May 5th, Rose became the 13th player in MLB history to garner his third 3,000 career hit when he singled off Montreal Expos pitcher Steve Rogers in front of 37,823 fans at home field of Riverfront Stadium. Now, with his trademark bowl cut, Rose was becoming more and more of a household name, and everybody in Canada States were wondering what he was going to do next. Now, on June 14th, some month and a half later, he singled in the first inning off Cubs pitcher Dave Roberts. A lot of people just saw it as a normal hit, but Rose would proceed to get hit in every game he played until August 1st, making a run at Joe DiMaggio's record 56-game hitting streak, which had stood virtually unchallenged for 37 years. The streak started quietly, but by the time it reached 30 games, the media took notice and a pool of reporters accompanied Rose and Reds to every game. On July 19th, in the game against the Phillies, he was hitless going into the 8th when he walked. His team was trailing in the 9th and the streaks appeared over, but the Reds batted through their entire lineup and gave Rose another chance at bat. Rose faced Ron Reed, a tough pitcher, and laid out a perfect bunt single to extend the streak to 32 games. Now, Rose would eventually pass 40 and then tie Willie Keeler's 1897 single-season NL record at 44, but the streak came to an end on a warm summer day on August 1st when Gene Garber, a very good reliever for the Braves, struck out Rose in the 9th inning. With 2 outs in a 2-2 count, Garber decided not to challenge Rose with a fastball. He took full advantage of Rose's predicament by throwing him an off-speed pitch out of the strike zone, which Rose, who had a very small strike zone, swung at and missed. Rose was livid after the game, blasting Garber and the Braves for treating the situation like it was the 9th inning of the 7th game of the World Series. Garber took the comment as a compliment. I said to myself, well, thanks, Pete. That's how I try to pitch every time I'm in a game. We'd never think Gene Garber would end the streak, but he did. Now, the road to 44 was built on more than a decade of top play. Now, Pete Rose, when you watch these great not pinball players, but pool players like Fast Eddie Felton and, what Paul Newman played, they played the table. Pete Rose, especially in the key series, I've seen him in 75, 76. You would look at a situation, the famous Louis Tiant kind of off-speed pitch that he didn't see coming. Rose was a studier of the game. He would almost be a coach or a manager while he was playing. And his batting stance was deceptive. He had a good home run power, but just like Phyllis Mian, choking up the bat for the Mets, or Rodney Scott with Montreal, you wanted to make contact. You always wanted to do something. But you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, in 1978, most of the publicity that year was going into the Red Sox and the Yankees, the famous collapse of the Red Sox, led to a one-game playoff. See, there are certain key years in Major League Baseball history we all remember. Obviously, 1971, Roberto Clemente helping the Pirates to the second time they won the World Series. The A's 72, 73, 74. Reds 75, 76. Then the Yankees 77, 78. And, of course, the Pirates, We Are Family in 79. The whole decade of the 70s was one continuous success for the sports. There wasn't a bad game. There were some bad teams, but the Expos and Mariners came in. The Blue Jays and Mariners came in. Pete Rose was getting more at-bats. Free agency was opening up. And players were moving, but Reggie Jackson was well-suited in New York. There was Rod Carew moved, of course, from Minnesota to California. I think he extended his career. But as an NL East fan, let me put this in perspective. In Canada, nobody cared about they never cared about the AL East until Reggie Jackson showed up and the Blue Jays showed up, coincidentally, the same year. But the NL East always been fascinating because Montreal Expos were literally Canada's team. One of the few teams in Canadian history that everybody had an Expo hat and everybody knew every player of the Expos. And when Pete Rose moved to the NL East, it drew his attention in Canada way bigger. You look at Donald Sutherland, he said basically why he became a bigger Montreal fan, because he could watch Pete Rose and the Phillies and Mike Schmidt and Gary Matthews and Gary Maddox, all these players. Donald Sutherland, an award-winning actor, watching more baseball just because of one player, because you need a talented opponent. And when Pete would show up in Montreal, the fans would go crazy. But that 44 Wee Willie Keeler, that's amazing because this was a slow ball era back then. Maybe it was more than 44 games. We're not sure. The stats say 44. But Pete Rose would maybe a better lineup in 78 protecting him before or after he was hitting. Maybe he would have hit the DiMaggio's number. He was not the player Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio was a killer player. Like I said, Pete Rose was the best. You might as well say he was a utility player that played 160 games a year. He could play any place. And I don't know, I never asked him to be catcher, but then again, you had Johnny Bench in Cincinnati, and then you had the great Phillies catchers in Philadelphia. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the story of how Pete Rose slowly built towards 44, tying Wee Willie Keeler's record. We missed the gentleman. I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't have a vote. But just remind everybody that doesn't know about Pete Rose. My God, ladies and gentlemen. We're lucky now because we got players like Guerrero and Ohtani and Bobby Witt Jr. and Aaron Judge. These are throwbacks to the 1970 players, because when they come into plate, everybody wants to watch what they're doing. We got Game 5 tonight. San Diego against Dodgers is going to be a barn burner. Probably Teoscar's going to have a big hit, our former Blue Jay and Astro. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like Pete Rose, let me know why. If you don't like him, let me know why. And if you don't really give a shit, let me know why. Don't forget, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. The channel passed 3,200 subscribers recently, which doesn't seem much, but that used to be the average circulation of a community weekly in New Brunswick, where I work with quite a few. 3,200 was a magic number because you could make money, because you could sell ads, jump up the ad rate. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, swing for the fences. Bye.